In this room, we have the converted, or the people we want to convert. The people who understand the importance of Chile to New Zealand and the relationships between our countries. Beyond this room, however, there are many New Zealanders who are really unaware of the relationship, despite all the work all of us are doing. For some Kiwis, Latin America is far away. The ocean shouldn't divide, but for some it does. And more to the point, links seem few. They're not, but they seem few. So in the Latin America Cape, we've spent quite a lot of time firstly trying to understand New Zealanders' perceptions of Latin America, and then to challenge those we think need a little bit of updating and deepening. And we try and do so in a way, and you heard about this a little bit in the previous panel, while capturing imaginations. We live in an age of data, and we live in an age of visual learners. So we've decided to develop a tool to visualize the relationships across the South Pacific. Led by Joseph Michael in the Art Science Lab at AUT, advised by my full CAPE team and a Victoria University of Wellington colleague, a project team has mapped several aspects of relationships with Chile and Latin America. We're just going to give you a wee taster of it. In some cases, the slides you're about to see rely on data provided by our team. In other cases, the slides have been developed by employing an application programming interface, an API or a bot. So here's some examples. We're just going to feature the ones on the panels we've done so far. We want to show that we are connected across the Pacific. And so here's one of the government presence in Latin America. And when we launch it, which we'll tell you about at the end of my couple of minutes here, you'll see that we can highlight individual countries. So here's our relationship. This talks about the New Zealand government presence in Latin America and how it can support academics, students, businesses, members of the public who engaged with the region. That's one of the more straightforward slides, but here's an example of the Chilean relationships here. As you can see, we've got an embassy, MFAT, NZTE, and of course ENZ with Javiera in Santiago. In terms of the broad trade agreements that Vangelis spoke about, here are all the different trade agreements, or the main ones anyway, which link New Zealand and Latin America. And as you can see from the Chilean slide, and I've got a pointer here, but I'd probably collapse the system if I tried to use it. Chile and New Zealand are in almost every relationship here. It's a particularly close relationship, but for the other Latin American nations in the room, we're also closely related to them as well. So again, this is all based on public information, and we're trying to present it in for two reasons. One, so people who are new to the relationship can present it visually and easily. We'd be happy for people to use this in presentations, for example. The other one is for people to drill into the data and think, oh, that's interesting. How come that country's there and not there? And why are these relationships happening together? Getting on to the academic collaboration. Here we're using the bot I mentioned. And here we've accessed the tool which is available throughout to the university system called Dimensions. And we can actually look at the relationship here. How many papers New Zealand and a Latin American author published together. And so here's one of showing academic collaboration with 4 countries. There are others, but as with everything visual, we could put Argentina here, we could put Peru and Cuba here, Colombia, but we can't fit them on the slide, this slide, so this is just indicative. But you can have a look at this in the break if you wish. We'll be here beside the desk to show you, but it shows you basically in what fields the relationship is and how many relationships there are visualized in this form. Here is the relationship with Chile, and you can see what disciplines have been strongest in co-publication since 1940, and it is live, this. And let's talk about how it is live here. We're going to play a short video of how this relationship works, I believe. Yep. So here you can map it by year, and here are the disciplines, and showing how we interrelate with each other, how many publications there are in certain areas. When we present it fully, we'll show you exactly word for word, and I don't want to get the script wrong about how one relationship links to another. Here is the data beneath the relationship. It's from the Dimensions database, and it shows publications by year. You can look at the funders. I'll just let it catch up. The funders, the authors, what the paper's about. So you can actually see that we're not talking about a void here, we're talking about a strong relationship between our academic worlds, which we, of course, want to grow. The point of this tool is also to inspire. So when we launch it, we'll be able to tell you all about this. The other thing we're doing in the tool is we're trying to visualize data, for example, of the number of students who come here, students from Chile and other countries. And you'll be able to highlight, and you see that Chile is a prominent source of students. Moving also more generally, you can see how Chile and the other relationships fit in terms of volume of student visas. Where do they come from? What parts of the education sector are they going to? Here's the Chilean profile, for example. And look more broadly, we can see how do other Chileans come to New Zealand? What categories of work do they come to? This is all based on publicly available information. I think this is from Stats New Zealand, I believe. This is one of my favourite ones. This is New Zealand, how New Zealand appears in Latin American news over the last 10 years. And there are certain spikes here which you may not be able to see from your distance, like the terror attacks, like COVID. And indeed, there's a lot of spikes after COVID, and you'll see that once we get in the news, the relationship starts being even larger. There are cultural aspects to it too. There's sport. There's some of these big spikes are sports events. There's even, to quote Joseph Michael, who's behind all this, Elton John getting sick at a concert in Auckland made the news. The point is, though, is to show that New Zealand is getting noticed in Latin America. It's getting increasingly noticed. And so we think this would be a really good way of saying that if you go to Latin America, you're not going into a void. Here's an example of what I was just talking about for you to see more easily, Christchurch terror attack. And you can see some of that slide there. Lastly, but far from unimportantly, we've mapped our own work. Latin America CAPE has been active in 4 fields. All the CAPEs have been active in 4 main areas. Programs focused on business, programs focused on education, what we call thought leadership, where we're sort of stimulating ideas, like this event is an act of thought leadership, and connectivity, where we're trying to kind of create a critical mass of relationship by connecting people in their disparate worlds together. You even saw that in the previous panel. So here's how we've mapped our own work, but there's also that might be time for afternoon tea. I think you get the point. We'll sort that out in the break. Okay, this one's live. Thank you. Behind me, thank you, Craig. This one's still live. We just showed this to stakeholders last week. Our government stakeholders got a very positive reception, and they thought, well, we could add more data to here. We could add working holiday students, Prime Minister scholars. We can enrich the business data. We've got a whole lot of data we're not going to show you now because it's incomplete. This is just a demonstration. If all proceeds as planned, we hope to launch it next year. We're just at phase 1 of the concept, testing it. Phase 2, we want to enrich the data. And here's the point. We want to make this interactive online. As someone said, that tools like this are like pets. You can buy them, but you've got to keep feeding them. And so we want to make it automatically feeding itself. The point is to bring New Zealand closer to Latin America.